nothing but the truth.
The threat of punishment that needs to be conveyed to Pakistan, it must be credible because that's key. I mean, Pakistan must believe that, yes, the Indian government is going to respond if terrorist attacks continue. As of now, I think we are in for a big battle. And I say this, Raj, because ultimately, you can say anything. I think we have to judge by actions on the ground. And what we are seeing is not very positive. I think the threshold has been reached with the way continuous attacks are happening. I mean, we can't say, the threshold should be 15 dead in one strike and then only we will respond. We are seeing the kind of incidents that have taken place, and I think patience has been tested enough. The options are, political, diplomatic, economic, and then going down to the military instrument. Why are we continuing with the ceasefire agreement? Why is it that when Pakistan is under pressure on the Afghanistan front, that we are keeping the line of control? Why the elections should go on? I mean, that we will fall into this trap of there is no normalcy, that we can't even hold elections.
Pakistan is back to playing a new game of terror in Jammu and Kashmir, and the stakes are extremely high. It has opened a whole new theatre of militancy in Jammu that has seen 5 major terror attacks in the past 2 months alone. All these have resulted in 16 Indian Armed Forces personnel being killed in action, apart from 9 pilgrims being brutally gunned down. Top Indian official sources say these multiple calibrated terror attacks are part of Pakistan's new game plan to disrupt the upcoming Jammu and Kashmir elections, apart from signaling that Islamabad is still a major factor to reckon with when it comes to the future of the Kashmir Valley. Hello, I'm Raj Chengappa of India Today and your host for Nothing But the Truth. In this episode, we will analyze why Pakistan has stepped up the ante in Jammu and Kashmir, what has India's response been so far, and what does India need to do in the crucial months ahead with assembly elections to be held soon in Jammu and Kashmir. But first, some basic background. In August 5th, 2019, soon after Prime Minister Narendra Modi was sworn in for a second term, in a bold move, his government took the major decision of abrogating Article 370 of the Indian Constitution. Now, Article 370 had been given to Jammu and Kashmir and gave it a special status that assured autonomy on several subjects which no other states had enjoyed. It was part of an agreement reached by the government of India and the then Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir for joining the Indian Union soon after the 1947 partition of India and Pakistan. I won't go into those details, but in 2019, the Modi government had the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act passed in Parliament, which, by the way, was also later cleared by the Supreme Court. And this, under this act, the Jammu and Kashmir region was made into a union territory of India. Ladakh, which was part of the J&K state, was separated and given union territory status. What that means was that, or what all this means, was that Jammu and Kashmir would lose its statehood and certain provisions of autonomy and would now be directly ruled and controlled by the central government. The act also mandated that Jammu and Kashmir would have an assembly similar to what other UTs like Delhi had. The Modi government also promised that statehood would be restored at some point, but did not indicate when. By doing these acts, India had signaled to Pakistan and the world that Jammu and Kashmir now is fully integrated into India, and that India would no more entertain any talks on its status with Pakistan, which still regards it as disputed territory. Since then, Pakistan has tried its worst to stir trouble in the valley and in the region, but the Indian Armed Forces and the security grid had repelled multiple attacks and has certainly brought down militancy in the valley. Yet, since 2019, when Article 370 was abrogated, there have been a total of 602 terror-related incidents that have seen over 687 terrorists being killed. But sadly, 242 security personnel stationed in Jammu and Kashmir have lost their lives, and over 150 civilians have been killed. One must mention at this point that there has been a ceasefire agreement between Pakistan and India since February 2021, and that has seen the line of control, or the LOC, being relatively quiet. But that is beginning to change, and in the past year, since 2024 or early this year, the pattern has shifted from major strikes in the valley in the past to the Jammu region. The past 6 months alone have seen 7 major attacks. Importantly, these have happened in districts that were seen as relatively free of terror threats, whether it's in Riyasi, Roda, Kathua, and Poonch. Earlier, most of the attacks were in the districts of the valley that abutted the line of control. And as we've seen, now these have shifted decisively and are taking place in Jammu. And this, by the way, the Jammu region has a defined international border with Pakistan. So experts say there are 5 major reasons why Pakistan is up the ante. The first is that the Pakistan establishment, or army, wants to send a clear message to the Indian government that despite the successful conduct of the Lok Sabha elections in Jammu and Kashmir recently, Delhi still has to contend with Islamabad when it comes to dealing with Kashmir. The second is that with the upcoming Jammu and Kashmir elections, this may be an unfolding strategy by Pakistan to create enough fear and violence and force the Indian government to postpone it. By attacking the Jammu region, where the majority of the Hindus live, the idea would be to stoke a communal divide between the valley, which is dominated by Muslims. This at a time when the annual Amarnath Yatra is in full swing. The third is a diversionary of the trouble and protest that Pakistan is facing in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, or POK, where residents have been protesting over the economic crisis, especially phenomenal inflation that they face. The fourth reason, and this is what many Pakistan experts mention, is that despite the new ruling dispensation in Pakistan headed by Shahbaz Sharif, despite this new dispensation making several overtures to bring normalcy to relations with India, the Modi government has so far not responded, and so Pakistan has turned the terror tap again. The fifth is that given the major internal political turmoil and divisions that's happening, the Pakistan army under its new chief, Asim Munir, is stoking the Kashmir flames again to create a possible rationale to take charge of the country. The Pakistan army is also testing India's threshold for such terror attacks. After all, in September 2016, after the terror attack in the Uri sector that saw 18 Indian soldiers gunned down, the Indian army launched surgical strikes across the LOC to neutralize terror camps in POK. And after the Pulwama terror attack in February 2019 that killed 40 armed personnel, for the first time since the 1971 war, the Indian Air Force used fighter jets to bomb terror camps in Balakot, deep inside Pakistan's territory. So that's the background, and now to look at India's options and how it should proceed to tackle the new threat, I'm delighted to welcome retired Lieutenant General Dipender Singh Hooda. General Hooda has had a distinguished career spanning 40 years in the Indian Army. From 2012 and 2016, he was stationed in Jammu and Kashmir, first as a corps commander and then as Army Commander of the vital Northern Army Command that oversees Jammu and Kashmir. Most importantly, General Hooda planned and conducted the surgical strikes against Pakistan in September 2016 after the Uri attack. General Hooda, welcome to Nothing But the Truth.
Thank you very much, Raj. Great pleasure to be here with you.
General Hooda, let us look at the series of attacks that has happened in Jammu recently. One, do you discern a strategy as other experts are saying about it? And two, what is the threshold should India tolerate up to before it conducts another Uri strike as you had done?
So Raj, clearly it's a well-planned, well-defined strategy. Facing pressure in the Kashmir region, the fact that normalcy is coming in that area, violence levels have come down. There is clearly a deliberate effort to stoke up violence in the Jammu region, because what we are seeing is this is a result of infiltration of Pakistani terrorists who have come across from both the line of control as well as the international border, with the specific aim of carrying out terror attacks on security forces and civilians in the Jammu region. I think to sort of give lie to the government narrative that, normalcy is all fine, normalcy is returning, elections are going to be held soon. So I see this absolutely as a deliberate attempt and not as some, incidental terror incidents that are happening.
Okay, and
How
if,
should,
yeah, please go ahead. No, you're going to finish your,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. How should we respond, Raj? Is the critical question. I think the objective is clear. The government's objective is that we need to deter Pakistan from carrying out terrorist attacks and using terrorism as a state policy. I mean, this is a very clear sort of objective, and the government has, shown some resolve in doing this. Uh, we don't need to see, you know, the threat of punishment that needs to be conveyed to Pakistan. It must be credible because that's key. I mean, Pakistan must believe that yes, the Indian government is going to respond if terrorist attacks continue. How that is going to be done, what options are going to be taken, I don't want to sort of second guess the government. But as I said, whatever we say should be communicated clearly and credibly, and that resolve should be very clear to Pakistan.
Now, I was asking you about the threshold because there was a threshold which we crossed when the Uri attacks happened and we went across and you led that surgical strikes. Then, of course, we had Balakot. We struck Balakot after the Pulwama attack. There, 38 personnel died. Now you've seen you've had a spate of attacks. If you see May and June in Jammu region, is that provocation enough, or what is the kind of attack that you would wait to say, okay, I want to send you a clear message that enough is enough?
No, I think the threshold has been reached with the way continuous attacks are happening. I mean, we can't say, the threshold should be 15 dead in one strike, and then only we will respond. We are seeing the kind of incidents that have taken place, and I think patience has been tested enough. So I think the threshold has been reached. If we continue to sort of tacitly accept that okay, these are isolated incidents, only a few soldiers have got killed, and this continues, Pakistan will be encouraged to keep doing what it is doing. So as I said, uh, to me, I think the threshold has been reached because we are seeing a very clear strategy by Pakistan that spread the arc of terrorism. It spread across complete Jammu region, Raj, and areas which you mentioned were completely militancy free have now got activated. I mean, Kathua area, I think in the last sort of decade and a half, had not seen these kind of attacks that have taken place. Hooda has been relatively free of militancy since the last 10 years. So, in my view, I think some action does need to be taken.
And what would you say these actions are? I mean, I'm not asking for a specific action, but you have got a range when you're dealing with this. What is the range that India has, which is both maybe overt, maybe in some senses, like we did the strike, more direct, and maybe escalating it even beyond that? What are the options we have?
Look, so when you talk normally about sort of deterrence, Raj, the options are political, diplomatic, economic, and then going down to the military instrument. In our case, I think diplomacy, there is no economic interdependence, so I'm not sure we can use those instruments. So what are we left with? We are left with military instrument, as you said, both covert and overt, uh, and whatever we do, as I said, must be credible.
Right. Would you sort of define when you say credible and when you say overt, covert, what would be, I mean, I'm not asking for a specific, but what would be the range that someone would have, a Northern Army commander would have, or the government would have?
Look, so I don't want to go into the covert actions, and I think everybody understands what these actions are. The whole idea is to make it clear to Pakistan that if you continue with these actions, you will get hurt. I mean, that basically is the idea. As far as overt is concerned, people have been talking about why are we continuing with the ceasefire agreement? Why is it that when Pakistan is under pressure on the Afghanistan front, that we are keeping the line of control quiet? So abrogation of ceasefire is one option. Cross-border operations is one option. All these options carry the risk of escalation, as we I think saw also in Balakot. But that is something that should be sort of acceptable to us, unless we are able to demonstrate, that we are willing to take some risks for the punishment that could be meted out to Pakistan. And I know I'm sounding a little harsh on this, but it's the fear of, if we continue to do this, uh, it will cost us more than if we discontinue it. So that principally is the sort of idea that has to be conveyed.
And if you take a look at one of the things is how is that Pakistan is so easily penetrating the Jammu region? You did have a security grid in place in the valley. Why is that we are unable to, despite the fact that we have a high amount of technology, tech int as they call it, as well as human presence or human intelligence over there, why is it that they are able to come and strike, if you take the whole, since November, they've been attacking at great regularity. Why is that we're not able to counter? And how many militants you really think are doing all this?
So Raj, yes, so we've talked about Pakistan, but you also mentioned about why is it that they're able to do this, and I think that is something that we need to reflect on, as to why is it that they've been able to infiltrate in such large numbers. The numbers that they're talking about is in this area, about 50 to 60 terrorists, Pakistani well-trained terrorists who are operating here.
And that's a
From a
serious number.
time,
That's a serious
that is
number.
a serious that is a
Yeah.
serious number, considering that in mid 2015-16 we were talking about 2-3 terrorists operating in the Jammu region.
Right.
So I think we have to introspect on our tactics, our strategy that we have deployed. What often happens, Raj, is that areas which remain peaceful, people start taking those areas for granted. Your intelligence network starts weakening. Uh, the procedures, standard operating procedures adopted by the security forces sort of tends to weaken. So these are things that we need to now seriously look at as to how is it that we strengthen our intelligence network, improve our tactics, improve our strategy, push in more troops if required. I mean, I don't think there is a shortage of troops with the Indian Army. I know it will be some temporary pain, but we can put in more special forces in that area. We can strengthen our counter-infiltration posture. We have been talking for decades about smart fences along the international border that have not come up yet. So these are some things that internally we need to sort of introspect.
And you had mentioned this option of, the ending the ceasefire. Firstly, why did we agree for a ceasefire? Pakistan continued to be hostile. Why did we say, okay, let's keep the border quiet? I mean, the line of control quiet.
I think, Raj, so I was not part of whatever discussion took place, but my own assumption is a couple of reasons. One is it was a time when we were facing this challenge on the Chinese border on the LAC. So 2020, 2021 was fairly tense as far as Eastern Ladakh LAC is concerned. So the second reason, Raj, is that actually the ceasefire was hurting the civilians more than it was hurting the military. I mean, civilians on our side also. It was completely disrupting their lives. So at that time, I think it was a good decision taken that let's have this ceasefire. It'll normalize things along the line of control. We can keep our focus on the LAC. So I think there were good reasons why the ceasefire was put in place.
But you think that is now run its course?
So I'm saying this is one of the options, Raj, because people are sort of questioning as to how is it that we can actually put some pressure on the Pakistan military, because that controls all this infiltration, terrorist activity, terrorist support is all through Pakistan Army. So how is it that you put some cost to the Pakistan Army for what they are doing? So I'm just saying this is one of the options that we can talk about.
Now, you had also mentioned Galwan and the fact that we were engaged in the line of actual control, the aggression that China had caused over there, and some of the troops had to probably move out. How much of that has, in some senses, lessened or weakened our ability to do counterinsurgency in Jammu region? Is that one of the factors that we are seeing as, this kind of numbers coming and hitting us?
So Raj, initially, yes. So we do know that some Rashtriya Rifle troops were moved out from the Riyasi sector, for example, and put to and redeployed to Eastern Ladakh when the crisis happened in 2020. And so there was some thinning out. But frankly, as of now, additional forces have come in. So whatever thinning out was there, those areas have got filled up now. As I said, I think we just need to look at how we are going to strategize, what tactics. Sometimes just back to the basics of convoy drills, how you patrol so that you are secure. All those things need to be looked at. A greater outreach to the local communities, so that humanint comes in quicker. There is also this question of, are we getting adequate human intelligence from this area that will enable us to operate, because these people have been operating, so there's obviously some local support. So how is it that we can enhance and increase our outreach to the local communities, getting better intelligence?
One of the things that is of concern is that given the fact that China and Pakistan are so close to each other, we've seen that over the years and got even closer now. Do you see a China hand in the Jammu thing, not in terms of direct, but in some senses covert, in some senses tech-int or technological intelligence, using devices and others to sort of either fool the Indian army in terms of presence or actually locate where they're coming and strike? Do you think there's a collaboration of this kind, and is that something that you would be worried about?
Look, there is a possibility. I'm not sure. We should be worried about it, because there is some talk about some of the communication equipment being used by terrorists is of Chinese origin. Should it worry us too much? Should it sort of change our thinking in how we need to respond to this? I don't think so. We have to ultimately, two elements of fighting this problem. One, of course, is the external element of Pakistan, and we've discussed that there needs to be some way to deter this adversary. And the second is, our own sort of internal processes and drills by which we can stamp out terrorism within our territory. Because ultimately, these 50, 60 people who are roaming around, have to be neutralized.
Now, one of the things is that, just for a layman understanding, right? What is the degree of difficulty when you are trying to patrol or prevent intrusions on the international border as compared to the line of control, where the army seems to be better networked in terms of whatever operations that they have? Why is it that it's so easy for them to get across the international border? And what you'd mentioned some things like fences and other smart fences, but what more can we do, and how can we prevent that? That's one of the porous areas, apparently.
So let's first look at the international border, and then I'll talk about the terrain of Jammu region as a whole. So the international border, appears that it's a plain area, and so there should be no problem. But here there are very large number of rivers and nalas, streams which cross from the Indian side to the Pakistani side, and in these areas, particularly when there is floods or heavy rain, the fence tends to get washed away, and then you have gaps which get created. I also mentioned, perhaps smarter fence, better surveillance. We've been talking about it for a long time. Some trials have also been done. That needs to be put in place. And perhaps greater coordination between the BSF, which is manning the fence on the international border, and some Indian Army troops that are deployed in the rear, also in the counter-infiltration role. Greater coordination, is required. As far as the Jammu region is concerned, Raj, where these attacks have taken place is extremely, extremely difficult and challenging. It's mountainous. It's roads are not road network is not very well developed. Population density is low. So these are challenges that you don't see in the Kashmir Valley because it's densely populated. It's a plain area. You can sit in your vehicle and reach anywhere within minutes. Here, even if you get intelligence, it'll take you 7, 8, 10 hours to walk to that place. So terrain-wise, it's a much greater challenge than operating in the Kashmir Valley.
Now, if you take the process forward, we have a state elections going to be held. Should we continue with the elections, even if there's increased violence and everything else, or do you think the election should be postponed?
No, I think the elections should go on. I mean, that we will fall into this trap of there is no normalcy, that we can't even hold elections. We've had a successful Lok Sabha election. Yes, there is these terrorists who are roaming around and attacking security forces, etc. I don't think the numbers are so large that they will be able to disrupt the election process per se. So I think we should just go ahead with the elections and hold them.
And when it comes to, you were talking earlier just a little bit about the fact that you needed greater coordination between these various armed forces or personnel that are there, including with the police. Do you think the structure that we have needs a complete revamp in terms of, this gridding, the BSF will do this, the Indian Army will do this, the J&K police will do this? Do you think there needs to be a change in the way we are organizing our security forces, particularly in Jammu?
Raj, I have been saying this, so I'm a great votary that you need a unified command. So as you mentioned, you have the BSF, which operates under the Ministry of Home Affairs. You have the Army, which is operating under Ministry of Defense. You have the CRPF, which is deployed in this area, technically reporting to the Ministry of Home Affairs, but actually operates under the state police. So if there is at least one unified commander, I think what will happen is you have a common strategy. There is more efficient utilization of resources of all the security agencies who are operating. And most importantly to me is that with a single commander, you are fixing accountability.
Right.
Then, you're not pointing fingers at each other and saying, look, no, I did well at the border, but somebody behind me didn't do his job, or, things like that. So if you have a unified commander, it would help. Unfortunately, I think, because of our service biases, structures, somehow there is resistance to this.
And does this now call that you're seeing, despite the fact that we, supposedly have full control of Jammu and Kashmir, we have brought development, if that is to be believed, what the government says, we are in position. The Lok Sabha election showed that there was, a 58% turnout, which is quite extraordinary given the fact that, earlier there used to be barely 40 or less than that. And we are seeing the assembly elections proceed. Do you think this is the time to really say, okay, now let's change it because there is an hostile neighbor that is going to keep interfering. We need to stop this before it gets out of hand?
Look, Raj, so we know there is a problem. I'm not saying that it's completely sort of insurmountable, that these 60 terrorists will not get neutralized at some stage. At some stage they will. But the earlier we do it, the better it is. And if there is a problem, then we need to deeply look into how is it that we can solve it. And as I said, one of the suggestions is that if you can have sort of a unified command and control arrangement, you can better your counter-infiltration rate both at the line of control and the international border. Improve your human intelligence resources. I think we will get there quickly.
And finally, I just want you to go across to Pakistan and look inside in terms of firstly, the political turmoil there. We're getting very mixed messages. You have Nawaz Sharif and Shahbaz Sharif and his daughter also, who's now the Chief Minister of Punjab there, who are making conciliatory statements saying that they would like to improve relations. And yet you see the kind of attacks that is happening. What does India proceed? How does it proceed on that front? And what is the deeper game that is being played? If you see from the other side, the general on that side, what's the deeper game is the army playing out there?
I think it's just, sending out a signal that we are the ones who are really in authority here, in power here. Whatever happens with India is going to be, It's in our hands, and we will do what it is. This is not a new playbook, Raj. If you recall, 2013, 2012 was a very, very peaceful year in Jammu and Kashmir. 2013, there was elections in Pakistan. Nawaz Sharif was making very good statements about, how we need to improve relations with India. And 2013 was the year we saw a sudden uptick in violence, again starting in Jammu region. If you go back into history, and you'll see attacks on Samba, uh, attacks in the Kachua area, Janglot area, the beheading which took place in January 2013, uh, the massive ceasefire violations that broke out. So they're the ones who are sort of in control, and that's a big challenge for the Indian political leadership. I mean, whom is it that you engage with, and how do you engage with? Do you engage with the military, which may not be acceptable? Do you engage with the political leadership that doesn't seem to have any authority? That's that's one challenge I think that India faces and has faced in the past.
And your reading of the fact that, General Bajwa did make, from the military side or the army side, he did talk of peace with India and changing the game. General Asim Munir so far doesn't seem to have enunciated a policy towards India, barring a few stray remarks. What is your sense of his game? And does he finally see something? Do you think he'll go the Bajwa way, or you think it will go the other way, and we are in for a big battle with Pakistan?
So as of now, I think we are in for a big battle, and I say this, Raj, because ultimately, you can say anything. I think we have to judge by actions on the ground, and what we are seeing is not very positive. Suddenly, there is an uptick in infiltration. There was some check on infiltration earlier. Now we are seeing that a more sort of freer hand is being given for Pak terrorists to come across. As I said, this is certainly a deliberate strategy to stoke up violence in the Jammu region. So, you have to put your money where your mouth is. So whether he says anything or not, judging by the actions that are happening, I think I'm not sure at this stage we can sort of trust him too much.
Okay, and finally, what's your big message? What is the advice, or your sum up of this entire thing that's happened, the Jammu terror strikes, and what do we need to move forward?
As I said, Raj, I always say this: don't underplay a problem. I mean, it's always better to overreact when you have situations like this. So put in whatever resources are required, uh, change structures where required, and make sure that you try and address this problem as quickly as possible. Sometimes we tend to underplay and say, no, this is why everything is fine. Unnecessarily people are talking about increasing violence levels. Numbers are still low, but I think we need to quickly sort of address this problem.
So, in short, you're saying there is a big battle ahead. We need to gear up for it. Don't take it lightly. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
General Hooda, thank you for your very lucid insights. You've really enlightened us on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Raj.
So there you have it. The situation in Jammu is serious after these attacks. And as General Hooda says, we need to gear up for the long battle ahead and do everything possible. India needs to do everything possible to nip it before it gets out of hand. Thank you for being with me in this episode of Nothing But the Truth. I look forward to having you with me next week. Nothing but the truth.